So let's meet our guests who are joining us today on Austin Faith Dialogue. This is Patrick Flood, the Executive Director of Austin Metropolitan Ministries, and we're glad to have you with us. Gail Miller is serving as the Vice President of the organization, and Roy Kimball is the President of Austin Metropolitan Ministries. Well, there have been ecumenical efforts and organizations in Austin for a number of years, but an interfaith organization is something relatively new. So you all are to be saluted for your pioneering effort. This is probably a pretty exciting venture. Now, Pat, you had had some experience in interfaith activities because you served as a director of a interfaith organization in Milwaukee.
The Interfaith Conference of Greater Milwaukee.
Well, as you considered this Austin position, what were some of the factors that made you say yes to such a traumatic thing as relocating to Austin, learning a whole new community, all of the leaders, the networks? What made you say yes to this?
You sound like you're coming from Milwaukee. And the challenge, really, is what brought me to Austin. In Milwaukee, I was director of the Interfaith Conference, which was a very established interfaith organization and very well supported and secured. But I think when the job opportunity became available in Austin and the call came and I was interviewed, the challenge to work in a city like Austin, the capital city of the state of Texas, to work in Texas, the largest state that I've ever been able to operate and work in. And so to get to know the people and to try to create something new in the interfaith world. That's really the reason I came.
I'm sure that creating and shaping is a very exciting part, but that's a lot of work. I know this first year of yours here on the ground has been a busy one.
Very busy. It's been a transition year also, coming from very well-formed previous organization. One had a 40-year history in Austin, and the other had a 20-year history. So to bring those together and then to expand into something new has been very exciting and challenging.
Well, Roy, as you are beginning your term of president, you're facing some challenges too, and I'm interested to know a little about your religious background that would lead you to this kind of a commitment to an interfaith activity.
Well, I think that a big thing for me here in Austin has been the influence of my local church, which is Highland Park Baptist Church. We have had for years the theme of a church becoming community. And for us to really put feet to those words meant for us to look outside of ourselves and look at what other people had to offer for our understanding of God. And we looked not very far across Mopac Expressway and found the congregation of Agudas Achim. And a relationship between our pastor and their rabbi led to a number of dialogues and exchange and mutual services and so forth that led to very keen interest on our part in this organization.
Well, that's very innovative, but that does give you some background that maybe other people do not have as they began to have interfaith relationships. And Gail, I would ask you the same question. How did you get involved in this interfaith organization?
Well, when the opportunity arose to include both the Jewish and the Muslim communities in the interfaith program, we had a vote in our congregation, and there was not one dissenting vote because we had so looked forward to the opportunity to serve in a group that was serving the community of Austin from a multi-faith background.
Well, it sounds like an idea whose time really has come, and I'm glad to know that you all are in the leadership position to move us through the year and maybe years ahead. But we're talking about Austin Metropolitan Ministries. Let's talk just a little bit about the structure, what the organization is, so that the viewers will have some understanding of what we're talking about. A little sketch, Pat. Who are members and how many are there?
There are over 100, I would say 105 to 110 members now. Those members are congregations of all denominations within the Christian communion, as well as the Islamic community and the Jewish community. We would also have institutions, religious institutions within
Would the seminaries be an example of
Presbyterian
that?
Seminary would be in it, the Jewish Federation, Austin Jewish Federation. Church Women United would be an organizational member.
So congregationally based, but religious institutions also, judicatories?
Yes, judicatory denominations, the district of the United Methodist Church, the Mission Presbytery, the Episcopal Diocese, they're members. It's an interesting thing. It's an organization of institutions, really, when we stop to think. But we think of creating community, and that's why we are together, but faith communities. And so it brings together the presence of the longevity of a religious institution within a community to make an impact on society and values. So that's its uniqueness.
Did not you all adopt an opportunity for individuals to be members?
Yes, but they are not voting members as such, because the institutions or the congregations vote or assign or designate, whatever their process is, 2 delegates, and that's the delegate assembly, which is really the governing, collective governing body of the organization. Then out of that comes our board, which are 15 members, and then the delegates have elected our officers. So it's very accountable to in a democratic process. We would have up to 350, 360 volunteers into various activities, so that people are coming out. Now, volunteers meaning into committees, into
You mean actually participating in the life of the organization?
That's correct. So you would have not only the delegate assembly, but you would have committees. One which is very large, of course, is the crop walk committee, which there will be a crop walk this year in March, but they would have a representative from each adjudicatory or faith group, liaison into then each congregation. So by the time you get 100 congregations and then a liaison to bring together, you have a very large organized effort just in one program.
One activity.
One activity.
So it does sound like you all have a good bit to oversee as the vice president and the president and the board of directors you mentioned, whom have been elected by representative from the membership organizations.
That's correct.
Well, Gail, from the members' point of view, what does it mean to be a member? You said your congregation voted to become a member. Does that include other commitments such as finances?
Yes, there is a financial obligation to join Austin Metropolitan Ministries because we have many obligations that we have made to the community of Austin. We are supporting members of many community-based organizations so that we can contribute to them from our congregations. In addition to that, it offers our delegates and members an opportunity to work on the various committees that Austin Metropolitan Ministries sponsors.
Now, Pat mentioned, for an example, one activity, the crop walk, the event that raises money for world hunger. Are there other regular, you meet in meetings, but are there a time when all of the representatives or delegates come together?
Yes, we get together once a month, either at noon or in the evening, for a general membership meeting in which a topic is discussed and any action that the group must take at that time is voted upon.
Well, when you talk about finances and votes and this, that, and the other, is there, when are things like officers elected and budgets adopted, is there one big meeting where that's done, or is business conducted all along? Is there an annual meeting, Pat?
Yes, there will be an annual meeting this year. Now, remember, we've just gone through our first year. I came February 1st of 1989, and our fiscal year is a calendar year. But this year we will have our annual meeting in February 8th at First Baptist Church at noon. There'll be luncheon, and people are invited, and they can call us and make reservations. And at that time, we will have the introduction of the new officers. The officers were voted upon in our December meeting and will take office the 1st of January. And we will have an accounting, I'm sure our first accounting on financial matters and the cost for this transitional year.
Well, that will be a big meeting,
Yeah.
kind of in a year of transition, but you've really been on your feet now for a while and probably pretty well organized. Roy, I had a question for you. I know in many ecumenical organizations there are ties or linkages with other state and national organizations. Is Metro Ministries autonomous here in Austin? Are all the decisions made here?
Yes, we are very much a locally community-based organization ourselves. Our membership, as Pat mentioned, is congregational membership. They are the ones that make the decisions along with the board and the executive director, and very much an autonomous group.
So you all are charting your own future, making the direction, shaping it as the Austin participants want it to be. And I guess that would lead me, Pat, to, as I realize what our community is like, the state capitol, a major educational center, and a lot of existing religious organizations, why do we need an interfaith organization in Austin?
I think a way to get into that is to talk about membership. The religious community is very responsive in Austin. It has a very good history of responding to need. It actually is the spiritual glue that holds the community together insofar as emergency services is concerned. Without the religious community, emergency food, emergency shelter would not be off and running, and would not be responding at the current level that we are responding. We are working in that area to try to organize that more into a better communication network. So the religious community has responded to providers of services. What they haven't experienced in Austin, really, is that membership means ownership of the organization. Austin Metropolitan Ministry isn't a service provider agency. It's rather, it is the religious community. It is the collective presence, owned and operated and planned and initiated issues and concerns within the community out of a value base. There are 3 dimensions to every issue. We would say there would be the political dimension when you decide a concern in the community. There is the economic dimension, and what is the fiscal impact, and then there is the ethical dimension. What about human values? And it's the religious institutions coming together to have a forum to speak to those religious values, to make an impact, to, in that sense, have their power made known, is the reason for an organization of this kind.
Well, it's a year and a half now, and it seems to me that you all have gotten off to a good start. I hear all sorts of things on the planning board, but knowing that you came out of some organizations in the past, Roy, surely there were projects, ministries, commitments that those organizations had made that would need to be a part of the new organization. How has that, did the new organization inherit some commitments?
In a sense, we did. We made a pledge and a commitment to continue some of the programs, the ministries that had been begun by Metro Ministries of Austin and the Conference of Churches. A couple that I might mention, the chaplaincy program at Bracken Ridge, the Gardner House, and the county jail have long been an effort from the Conference of Churches. Where Metro Ministries was involved with a number of community-based organizations, we've continued support of those organizations. We've continued our efforts in the area of housing and food and older adult concerns. And those are commitments that we want to always be involved in.
So some of the past you've carried with you as traditions, but you're shaping a new identity because it's totally different with faith traditions being combined instead of just Christian or just Jewish or Muslim. So, Gail, as I was thinking about the transition, it seemed to me that one of the things that helped bridge this gap from the past organizations into the new Metro Ministries was this television show, which began under the auspices of the Austin Conference of Churches and serves very well the new organization. The base of information has been broadened, participants have been broadened, and I thought of another project under the Conference of Churches that was, they were looking at the entire community, the services that were offered, trying to coordinate that, emergency services, directory, and network. Is that still in place? Is it developing?
Actually, we're hoping to expand our knowledge of that because we have a volunteer in our office, Jean Marcus, who is working very hard to do a survey in the community to see what is offered and how we can plug our efforts into that established network.
So, Pat, what will that network look like when it's finished? Some sort of a computer listing or a central number? People could say a congregation in Northwest Austin might call a central number and find out about services that have been provided to a family or something like that?
Yes, in Austin, you would have some major service providers. For instance, Caritas would be a very big service provider and central to what is going on right now. The Southern Baptists would have a meal program. Frank Deutsch, Reverend Frank Deutsch is very active. The Salvation Army. But then you would have the food pantries and the food bank, and those are scattered within congregation. So it's a matter of implementing a better communication, a better sharing, a better distribution of food, and that is available to those various outlets, and that could end up in a computerized service, but that's not necessarily clear. They have that in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and we are investigating that. What kind of a Austin model do we need?
So that's the point at which you are now. You've implemented the stewardship effort to try to make better use of what we have.
I think that the projection of how much money is actually given, we surveyed some congregations, it's up to $25,000, $30,000 a year that is being given to emergency services. When you bring that accumulation, and others are smaller, you could have a very sizable amount. The religious community, they asked the question of public policy, how do we eliminate the causes as well as provide the services? It's coming to a collective understanding ourselves of the role that we're playing within the total community, which up to this point I don't think it is viewed as such. It's viewed more as charity and a response. We have to begin to ask the justice questions of how can we impact on values and policies within our community.
So that's one of the things, that's a concrete example that you were talking about as you explained about why we need such an organization like this, to look at all of the dimensions and perhaps cover those that other elements in the community are not addressing.
Another example would be the housing. Now, what First Methodist initiated a very exciting program with Housing Resource Association, which really came out of Metro Ministries, the former organization, to bring a team of people to work with a house to rehab it. Now, there are about 12 congregations that do that, and we are planning an event whereby we are going to target 25 to 75 homes in one day this spring and bring the religious community together within and to wed the home and the residents with the congregation to create community, but to do some very concrete impact on housing. So that's another exciting event.
So you're going to take, again, a project that had some roots in the existing faith communities and kind of shape it under the auspices of Austin Metropolitan Ministries.
Right. As a congregation would relate unilaterally, let's say, now that we can relate to each other and that we are a community of faith, of all faiths, impacting upon the housing crisis within Austin, and really with the right to speak to how the city spends its money if we're going to be making that larger contribution to the housing scene.
So that the religious community would look at all of those dimensions you talked about, the economic
That's right.
as well as the values that are imparted. Well, there's another exciting thing that I have heard about that you all are planning, and this past Christmas season, there was a very innovative approach in that you brought the faith communities together at the Christian season of Advent and Christmas with a focus on peace and peace efforts in the community. And I'd like to hear how that began.
I believe that one of the reasons for our existence, and Gail brought this out very clearly, is to create community. And there's a need to create community across faith lines, that to lift up the common traditions and values that we have, at the same time to make very clear our distinctions, that we are not all going to be melted into one. We are not a melting pot. We are pluralistic groups of different entities who have a commitment to the quality of life within the community. Now, how do you express that in worship and in faith and in song and in prayer? And we've had 2 events this year, which I thought have been very exciting. One was the Thanksgiving event at St. David's. The other was at Central Presbyterian, the holiday Christmas event. It was really a peace event, the celebration of peace as expressed by the 3 faiths, Islam, the Jewish faith, and the Christian faith. At the Thanksgiving service, it was a similar type of Thanksgiving, and Betty Sue Flowers spoke on the meaning of Thanksgiving and to all of us. And the response has been that this is the first time we've experienced across faith lines our common heritage, and much more of that has to be done.
That is very enriching. Roy, as the president, do you see this peace effort continuing? Are there other activities planned around that?
Barbara, we have a committee, our Peace and Justice Committee, that will continue to explore several topics in that area. I think this was a great beginning for us as our first endeavor in that area to bring the community together and have them together explore what it means from the different perspectives. Very, very significant occasion.
Well, you've talked about peace issues, housing, the crop walk. Gail, if some of our viewers are interested and wanted to learn more about those projects, how would they find out any more?
They're welcome to call our office. We'll be very happy to put information in the mail to them. We'd be glad to get their name on a mailing list. And if there is any question that we can answer or any other information they need, we'd be delighted to send it to them.
Well, I found in my files this brochure that was developed early in the formation of Austin Metropolitan Ministries that is very informative. It has a mission statement. It says what you plan to do and how you plan to work. So I'm sure printed material is available, and it may be some people are not involved in a congregation that has done housing rehab in the past and might like to get involved, or youth groups, or an older adult group. So we would encourage viewers, anyone that is interested, to call the office. The number comes on at the end of the show, and you can call the office and maybe even talk to Pat. He never gets to talk on the phone. We'll tell some people to call you.
Wonderful.
Let's look quickly, Roy, at your personal perspective from the presidency. What would you like to accomplish during your term?
Barbara, I hope that we can continue some of the activities that we started in the ministries. Most of all, I think I want to see Austin Metropolitan Ministries develop into a presence in the community, one of involvement, one of leadership, one of shared ministry, that we can serve as a catalyst for the common community good and whatever activities that we become involved in.
Well, I certainly wish you the very best. And Gail, quickly, what would you like to accomplish in the time that you're serving as Vice President?
Well, as we learn about each congregation's faith values, we also want to preserve our morals and our ethics and be seen as leaders in the community in these areas.
Well, that is a real challenge to pick up on the word that you had, but I don't think it's unrealistic. I think the time is right from what you all have said, and it's an idea whose time has come. Thank you so much for being here. You've been delightful guests, Patrick Flood, Gail Miller, Roy Kimball, the new officers of Austin Metropolitan Ministries. And thank you for watching. Austin Metropolitan Ministries is serving as a fresh new voice for the religious communities. It is building on long-standing traditions while creating new traditions of its own. This program, Austin Faith Dialogue, is pleased to be a part of this new venture and invites you to join us each week. May God's grace and peace be yours in the week ahead. Good day for Austin Faith Dialogue.
For more information, call Austin Metropolitan Ministries at 472